Yeah. Well, thank you all for joining today. I shall today give you a thesis defense where my title is Generative AI Mature Enough for Maturity Model? A comparative analysis. I myself, of course, named Mischa van Ek, and I've been supported by my first supervisor, Slinger Jansen, and my second supervisor, Nico. I first saw the project on Conjoin, a place where professors share the projects where you can do a PhD about or a master thesis. And I felt like automatic focus area maturity model generation, or what a fancy sentence. Well, first thing that popped up to me, I love AI, Generative AI. I was already spending my free time on it with maturity models. What again is that? I'm going to ask you a quick question. Just raise your hand. Does anybody know what a maturity model is? Good. All right, some basic understanding of maturity models. Well, let me just help you to understand a bit more. I can't explain everything because that's a whole subject on its own, but basically a maturity model is you get a bit of a step plan. How can you reach a higher level? There is a stage maturity model where you go on each level and you have to check, all right, I start with level 1. If I want to get a higher level, I have to check everything what's on the higher level for specific process areas. If I even want to go a higher level, I can't skip 2 levels. I have to take it level by level. This is not allowed for a stage maturity model. For continuous one, you can. You can just take a process area, take a specific subject for a process area, and you can just go higher. Of course, these maturity models are filled with capabilities or practices. This is just an example of like any project management and everything in that specific cell. And then I have to go to the next step. It's the basic for continuous maturity model. So what can I really do with maturity models? Like there's a lot of reasons to mature. And it first started off with the Department of Defense, where the first creations of a maturity model came into place. They saw they had huge costs, just huge costs of software contractors that went over budgets, that just had often problems with it, and it was just so much problems with it. So they came up with a solution, a maturity model, where they can see where are we currently, how mature are we currently in our capabilities. And these results resulted in positive outcomes. Here's just an example. I'm giving a quote from Bill Curtis, one of the lead creators of the capability maturity model, one of the first maturity models that came in. And it said, like, this data is one of the best data that's currently out there. These maturity models spared millions, might even say billions. It became popular. Money. Well, it's great, it's amazing, but a lot of other maturity models are available. And for my research, I looked at the focus area maturity model. So a bit of the logic of the capability maturity model, you can put in the trash. It's a continuous maturity model where you start at a specific row, I'll just call it right now, and you have to look, all right, what is in that row that's first done there, and what action capability do I have to do next? And within a specific area, I have to draw a line. Have I done all the capabilities in an area to measure the maturity? This is also for focus area maturity models. There are some differences for it, that each level doesn't have a specific meaning towards it. And these measurements, where does capability A or capability B have to be? There's a lot of fancy methods to check in what specific level it comes, but these evaluations are just subjective. Whereas like the previous, it was like empirically checked, like the higher you go, the better results. These are just very much subjective measurements where they should be placed. So new maturity models came because a lot of money came. New topics arrived and the market changed. So what's the mean? You have to choose the right one. There's a lot of maturity models out there. It gets outdated, and above all, it takes a lot of time and effort to create a new maturity model. So heaven arrives. And what was the top of heaven? GPT. And GPT asked you, how can I help you today? And help it did. As for information, it was able to provide whatever question you have and give an answer. It served around like predicting the next word. That's a lot of fancy stuff behind it. Basically, I was able to ask it, create a maturity model. These maturity models are like personalized. These maturity models are very quick to create, and they're up to date with the training of the AI model. But what can I do with this? This is really great, but I need to make a bit more sense of this, the potential. For that, I formulated the main research question. What role can Generative AI play in the life cycle of maturity models? First, let's think about it. Because, well, Google already claims with their own generative AI, it's better than humans. So, research them. Nah, I'm just joking. This is not enough to just say AI-generated maturity models are better. It's also, you have to think about, let's try to compare the bits. But if we're going to compare an AI-generated maturity model with a human-created one, how can we really compare it? And there's a lot of variations of maturity models. So if I'm going to compare one, I have to know if the comparison is right. These are a lot of challenges that are ahead. Additionally, like there's no specific standard given of what is a valid maturity model. And I can create my own maturity model and follow the same procedure and test it, but does it really tell enough? You do have to check if you're going to follow the same process, how does it compare to another process? So for that, I formulated, to get more clarity on the main research question, 3 sub-research questions. The first one is, what are the design criteria for evaluating maturity models? Because if I'm going to compare something, I need to know with what specifically am I going to compare it with. The second one is, how do AI-generated maturity models compare with traditional human-created maturity models in terms of design criteria? So how is the comparison? Is one better? Is one worse? And the last one, I'm curious about the expectations, because I'm only talking about the development, but there is much more. So for the first one, what are the design criteria for evaluating maturity models? I did a literature review. I call it 0-point literature review because this is really the start of my thesis. And it all started with my teacher saying, oh, here's some quality criteria. You could look at a paper published. And I'm like, all right, this gives me some kind of reasoning for it, but I do need to have research a little bit more. And when I dug a little bit deeper, I saw that these quality criteria kept getting used in other focus area maturity models for an evaluation with a lighter scale. And I thought, like, is this actually good? I think this is good, because behind it, it's from a paper in 2015 that looked at how can I evaluate on empirical measures. This really brought me to a reason these are the design criteria I could use to at least compare maturity models. Well, what are these design criteria? So 1, completeness, 2, ease of use, 3, effectiveness, 4, operational feasibility, and 5, usefulness. Each of these design criteria I'm going to ask in an interview, and in an interview with maturity model experts, I'm going to ask them, could you rate it on a scale from 1 to 5 based on likely ratings? This gives me, if I grab all this data, a bit of an overview, how good in terms of quality is the maturity model. So answering the second research question is like, how do the AI-generated maturity models compare in terms of the traditional maturity models? I'm going to tell you a bit of the procedure I went through. First, I had to select a focus area maturity model. Second, I had to create custom GPT. For that custom GPT, I will be able to create an AI-generated variant of a focus area maturity model. And then I've got a human one that's selected. I've got one that's created by an AI, and an AI follows the same structure as the human one. And the comparison is done with the interview. I have to compare that both follow the same structure. Both are relevant. I'm comparing apples with apples, not apples with oranges. So for the selection, I'm going to select one that's created by a human, and the one that's by AI follows the same structure and the same topic. If I suddenly grab a different topic, well, the topic might influence the results. If I grab one that's created by a human, but nobody used it, it wasn't published, well, I might not have a good representation of how good an AI-generated focus area maturity model compares with one that's just accepted by the scientific community. For my selection process, I looked and graphed all the existing focus area maturity models. I first filtered on structure, then filtered on relevance, and lastly, of the maintaining focus area maturity models, I picked two. Two of them that came out was the DevOps and the SPBM focus area maturity model. For the DevOps nerds here, I think you might know what it means. It's basically from end to end. I code something and try to see how I can automate it to deployment and operations. Here is an example. Here's the specific DevOps focus area maturity model I got. Well, I've selected one, I've gotten one, but I also need to make an AI variant. So I have to think like, all right, I have to follow a procedure how to create one. And with this procedure, I also have to think in that procedure of creating one, how do I deal with the errors? If some error comes up, what should I do with it? Here's a bit of the process. I created my own custom GPT for making focus area maturity models. I prompted it for the focus area maturity model, the documentation aligned with it, and put it into documents. So I got one that's selected by a human, and I've gotten that information into a separate document. And now I've created one by an AI variant of it, and I've put it also in the documents. So great, it's time for interviews. I've got an AI one, and I've got a human one. And this process, I was also curious about, well, also for, at least for the top one, I selected it, got in the documents, and for the custom one, I created an AI variant. But, oh, Jesus. I haven't even talked about what the GPT did. Luckily, my custom GPT quickly made a little bit of a scheme to get a bit more understanding how this process works. So I can't go through the whole thing with it. It's basically, I grab a focus area maturity model. Of that, I grab the topic. That topic, at first, I will prompt it in a custom GPT, and the GPT will create an AI variant of it. And everything around it is a bit too much, but it's like I do an action. That action requires instructions. For those instructions, AI generation takes place, and AI generation output is done, and I get a separate document. And these instructions are with the help of the documentation and the logic of the focus area maturity model. So, interviews. I've conducted the interviews with 16 people. I also can count the 17th person. He didn't do an evaluation, and it was with Bill Curtis, one of the original creators, first maturity model, a very popular one. And the interview protocol is I gave them a document. They didn't know if it was AI generated one or if it was human created one. And they got 4 minutes of time to look at the documentation, the focus area maturity model. And after that, they get to have the questions. Can you rate this in terms of ease of use from 1 to 10? And for each design criteria, I gave them a question. And all the data was collected, not only the quantitative data, also the qualitative data. I grabbed the quotes. Why did they give a 4? Why did they give a 3? Why they said that it was very feasible? And I used this information to make understanding of why the ratings occur. And the results shocked me. So here on the left side, we have AI-generated maturity models. On the right side, we've got human-created ones. So as the pendulum swings, you've got at least an indication. If you go lower, the quality is higher. And the results show AI-generated maturity models scored better than human-created maturity models. Let me say it again. AI-generated maturity models score better than human-created. absolutely didn't expect that. Because these human-created maturity models also went through evaluation, publication, and a lot of process with domain experts looking at. I created it, no knowledge. And even these creation ones could even be better by AI. Like I just took the first one and thought like that seemed fit. And the ratings showed that it was that the human created one scored 2.94 on a rating from 1 to 5, and the AI one scored a 3.44 on a scale from 1 to 5 in terms of the lack of ratings. Additionally, it was basically a conflict. When I asked them, do you know which one is AI generated? Because I was like wondering, maybe the AI bias, because in research showed if they know it's generated AI, they're going to give it a different rating. Could they tell the difference? They could not. It was just basically a coin flip. 47.5% of the time they guessed correctly, but often just said like, I don't know. And it's fun to add a quote that was also said by Bill Curtis when I discussed with him. My opinion is that the AI-generated maturity models, are probably going to be as good as 90 or 99% of maturity models. I don't know if that's a positive thing to say, but I've had a lengthy conversation with Bill Curtis. I got many quotes in there because he said so many profound things. That's at least important to mention here. At least a little bit bigger, deeper, because this is just a whole average. Additionally, I can say that the DevOps focus area maturity model scored around the same. But the software product portfolio management did show that the human created ones did score quite lower than the AI generated one. And there was only one design criteria out of all of them where the human one scored better. And it was also interesting to say that the AI generated one, both of the scores, they showed little variance. So with this, I'm questioning if I'm going to generate another focus area maturity model, is that going to be on the same quality? Well, now on to the question, the expectations, because this is just the creation, because much more. So I asked the community as well that I had the interviews with, and they're all maturity model experts. What is your expectation? And I wanted to put these expectations into the maturity model lifecycle to get a bit of like, where are the biggest expectations within maturity model where generative AI could play a role? And I investigated the ones that shows the highest times to be expected as a role. As there we get a bit more clarity, this is exactly where a role could be. Here is the maturity model lifecycle. On the left side, you see a cycle where a maturity model is developed. On the right side, you see an application cycle. This is where a user has a maturity model, and I'm curious about what's current mature level is my business, and I use the maturity model to make sense of that. And afterwards, after they use the model, they also try to think, all right, what are my next actions? And I put them and categorize them, and it showed that for the developer cycle, the most suggestions where generative AI could play a role was in the scoping phase and in the design of the model. Where for the application cycle, the most suggested one is create an action plan. Is the moment when you've created a maturity model, what am I going to do next? And they thought that as expectation, generative AI will help you to create a customized plan, personalized to your organization. Something where if I'm just going to get a document, that document is not going to talk back to me. So generative AI shows potential now. And at least I've done the research in generative AI maturity models. I've seen the expectation that it has, and it's absolutely amazing, where it's now fast, up-to-date, personalized, and as well, it's supposed to be even better. And it's also done completely by me, where I have no knowledge about DevOps or all this stuff, so this is great. And you start to question, right, what do these results mean? So I adhere the validities of my research. So for the validities, it was quite short evaluations, and not everybody had domain knowledge about the maturity model. So it was not always clear, like, we do want someone who really understands the underlying principles behind the maturity model. It's also the likelihood measurements is not always used, but it's not clear standard. So I had to take at least one choice. And these are just two. Can I really generate them across all? That's very difficult with something to see. And it wasn't the second coder. These are just my readings, analyzing the results. It would have been nice if someone else checked the transcripts. The outcome was only evaluated. It was not that someone else really checked how long is the procedure to create a maturity model and how long was it for me. I would have wanted to also check, can I make their own maturity models and what they define with it, but I'm not doing the PhD, I'm just doing the master. And these are only two. There are so much more. And the two I picked did show a high variance. So what if I grab another one that has a lot of higher rating, like thousands citations? Very curious what results would come with that. Let's answer the research questions. Go quickly through it. The sub-research question: what are the design criteria? Completeness, ease of use, effectiveness, operational feasibility, and usefulness. How do they compare? AI-generated maturity models show to be better. And what are the expectations? Big expectations are there to create an action plan and to develop a maturity model. And with this potential can be shown that AI-generated maturity models can develop a maturity model of current existing ones and as well help you to create an action plan. The future work. So, someone could replicate the study. Further, we looked into in prompt engineering to improve the AI-generated maturity models. I just iteratively tested which instructions worked, which instructions did not work. I did look at techniques, but it was very much on like a trial and error basis. I already see that Slinger has posted in the group chat, there are better instructions, and I have my own personal plans to look at the instructions, the mathematical formulation, how a maturity model is formulated. I used Shine Blinker's formulation, but I did check up and there are some mistakes in that. The case study, you want to test once a maturity model is created, does it really hold up with reality? These are just questionnaires. These are not actually the checkup, does it happen in a real business? And refine and replicate. Now with this showing to be even better, and hopefully also being added with later a case study, what are we going to do with the current existing ones? Should we replicate the current existing ones, or should we refine them? And the last one is the research goals. I've at least given the expectations, I've given a little bit of research, more digging to be done. A whole study on its own for each of the one expectations I gave can be complete. Implications for this are massive, but I do want to at least say a little bit of the pessimism with bringing Bill Curtis back. He says we have a library of like 4,000 different maturity models, and just hundreds and hundreds of different maturity models, most of which don't work, most of which haven't been used. So I can add this to our environment, but is that really a good action? Also, I just want to bring more. I've seen too much difference between reality and what people say in questionnaires. I want to see hard data. And it's difficult to get hard data, but now that we've gone so quickly with the process of developing one, I would love to have that. You can actually measure on the specific KPI. The higher level you go, the better the outcome. That would be just amazing. That we just have a bit of a step plan, like you measure the burnout. If you measure with a maturity model, the higher level you go, the less percentage of burnout. Revolutionary. Just amazing way to just go forward. Bunch of other quotes, bunch of new ways to go forwards. This is just only part of it. Let me at least end with a quote. The quote by the pioneer, and it was called the father of software quality, who started really the original research of the capability maturity model, Watts Humphrey. Sadly, he's no longer with us, but I do want to say, as I started with my thesis, and I will end it with my presentation, if you don't know where you are, a map will help. With this, Morpheus, surprise questionnaire. Oh no, so, I'll slowly make it quick. This is a question that, oh gosh, it's not even going to be, I'll expand it. This is a question that the people also had during the interview. And they got the two maturity models. These are for the software product portfolio management. quick explanation, software product portfolio management. An organization has a lot of software products and they need to manage it and they need to seem to improve it. This is the maturity model where you start and see how can I improve and managing it. And here you've got A and here you've got B. And I'm going to ask you, and you're going to raise your hand. I'll say when you should raise your hand, which one you think was AI generated. So here you've got A. So I'll give you 10 seconds of the time, a little bit quick. And here you've got so I'm going to ask you and raise your hand. I'll start with A. Which one you think is AI generated? Do you think that model, focus area maturity model A was AI generated? Raise your hand. Right. Yes. And which one do you think is AI generated? Right. I'm seeing like 5 hands and before hand 3 hands. The one that was AI generated was, well, you were correct. It was B. Sadly, Slinger had it wrong. It was by also your colleague Inge van der Weert who worked on the software product portfolio management. So it's fun to mention. I think it's Jack Winker as well. It was published in a Springer journal, and that one of like A was created by a human, B was created by AI. And with this, I end it. Thank you for listening, and I'll just leave this in the background for like improvement points for my thesis. So I had a little bit of assistance for my supervisors. Thank you for listening.
Very much for a very entertaining presentation. Now on to the discussion. Nico.
Oh yeah, please ask as difficult questions as possible. I do not want you to hold back, as I have so much more to say. Some things do go outside the scope of it, as I've even discussed about the future of maturity models with Bill Curtis. But like, I can only have so much to say where I can say this is what I know and this is what I can hypothesize. But please ask a question as difficult as possible. Yes.
Might be an easy question, but difficult to answer. What were the most discerning themes and answers / quotes you identified on? I think you asked people to give a rationale for why they give a certain rating on your Likert scales. What were the most discerning themes that you identified? Do you know it?
I just want to check. So discerning themes, you mean like these are the most remarkable quotes to say, like
the most interesting most explanations for their grades, or the most interesting outliers.
I would like to say that was the one for the software product management, software product portfolio management, and there it was praised that the software product portfolio management AI generated one had a good maturation path. It understood where should you have to be as the starting point and what next step should you take. This is the basics
for maturity, for the plan, so to say, how to get on the next step in maturity.
Whereas like the human one, it was sometimes said like these are kind of randomly put here, or even unrelated to software product portfolio management. And was like, okay, that's kind of also one where they said like this might be a bad student who made this, and they're like, so you don't want to.
Would you try to explain why the AI? Now I'm going to go to that question, why the AI generated model takes that as like the dot on the horizon. So why is it converging towards models that feature that the crowd plan as a backup? You state that the AI generated models focus on getting a step further on the maturity ladder. So why? Could you try to explain why an AI-generated one puts emphasis on that? How could it get there, that it tries to, did you find anything related?
I just want to check for sure. So how can the AI understand how progression is supposed to work for the generation of, but that's the,
It could be a decompilation.
Bill Curtis himself, he said like, this is just the AI copying what it thinks. For me, and this is more of a divergent opinion within AI experts, I think that the AI is starting to understand the world. Where you've got very prominent scientists who are like pessimists and it's just predicting the next world. And I am arguing we are able to already just, I just want to grab it, understand how to create just an image already on its own. Such magic behind it. And also an AI expert said like, AI doesn't understand physics. It's just only predicting the next word. It doesn't understand how should I put a mouse on a display or on a keyboard and not make it fall. And this is purely on physics, whereas for the AI, all behind it is just only words. But as the model became smarter with GPT-4, it showed that the thesis or the hypothesis that Jan Koop, one of the big AI experts and pessimists, that thesis was proven wrong. And with this, something as just understanding what should be the next action on it, that the information so much goes into the AI, it's able to contextualize how should I make a mature path to the next step.
Might it be related with the fact that it's trying to predict the next word, also to always focusing on predicting the next step, right?
That could 100% be the case, that it even has better alignment with how progression is supposed to take. With that, that's outside of my knowledge to hypothesize. Interesting.
Thank you.
Yes. So I saw.
Yeah, well, I saw two schemes and we had to make a choice, but what was the difference? Because it was like, okay, I'll take B.
Oh,
Like we said, also A. So
that's first of all, that's a little bit. There's more behind it. Because what's the difference? What's a good maturity model and what's a bad maturity model? How is a maturity model supposed to look? There's so much depending on the context and such. All in all, what I can say is maturity model is supposed to convey what current status are you in software product portfolio management? What should be level 1 for that, where you start off? What should be the next level, and further beyond? And shows you the best way how to progress to get to a higher level to have better outcomes. And for the human one, it says this is supposed to be at level 1. You're supposed to have like define the product manager task. You have to define the corporate product lifecycle management vision. Whereas for the AI generated one, it says you have to have at least done initial market research. And after that, the next step, you should do a regular market fit analysis. This is where the divergence is. Which one is specifically right is sadly what I can say a little bit lost with a subjective opinion. Whereas previously it was very much measured, the higher outcome you go, better outcome. And this gives a bit more of a vision. This is how the best action should be done, the best practices. But these are the differences. Any?
Yeah, I mean, now that we're looking at this picture, I see 2.1 and 2.2, and somehow ChatGPT has helped you decide or has helped create putting one in the first maturity level, the other in the second. So what was used to place them there? How does it know that the initial market research should happen before defining the product lifecycle state?
For that, I can't speak for ChatGPT. For what I can at least state that these instructions are based on the mathematical formulation, how a focus area maturity model is supposed to work, and the ChatGPT is told, or the GPT-4 is told to put them in the right maturity level and have it so that when you put it in maturity level 1, when you put it in maturity level 2, it's supposed to have the right progression of how a maturity model is supposed to work.
And so that's probably defined the dependency between those two.
The dependency, yes, the dependency A and dependency B and dependency C is defined. The dependency within an area is defined. What it does not have, and what some other maturity models do have, and I did decide to not have that in the instructions, is that it has inner dependencies. or interlinkage, how I call this, interlinkage where like you first have to have B, in order to do B done, you have to do A and B. Some other focus area maturity models had to have those instructions or those requirements before you could complete this capability. But for what I gave as a rationale why I left that out of the instructions, I can add it to the instructions, is that it will be too much to quickly comprehend in an interview that's already this short.
Like your discussion, it's also physics. I think that's at play here too. And we don't know what is in the secret ingredient of ChatGPT, but I think there are some tools behind it that can do better math and do.
We'll have to ask closed AI.
Yeah, exactly. Close AI knows it all. I have another question about the Likert scale, because the
Yes.
Likert scale, I see the 2.94 versus the 3.44 or something.
I'll grab the, yes, this.
Yeah, this one, that's 3.44. So for me, I have a profound hatred for Likert because of the small differences that you're always seeing. At the same time, 1 to 7 or 1 to 9 doesn't make any difference. So 1 to 5 is apparently the secret number.
Yeah.
So do you have to do a factorial analysis to really identify these two values?
For what I at least did to have reasonable understanding, and this is also what you suggested to me, is I can't just take these numbers as just face value. I have to at least also have reasoning. Why did someone give a 3? Why did someone give a 4? And I also did point out in my, and I didn't state it, it was year in my, it's at the last slide. I also stated in the comparison, you're not really supposed to also average ordinal data. I have ordinal data with Likert scales. This is a choice I made because I need some kind of comparison. And I do want to defend myself as previous focus area maturity model evaluations have done the same.
And then ease of use and operational feasibility and usability. For me, those three are so close in terms of quality.
True. I do want to also note, and I was like thinking to maybe argue in a discussion some of the questions that were given. They said the question is quite interlinked with another quality criteria or design criteria, and that is something I have to just say true. I do have to make a decision. I need to have some kind of data, and I advocated for a case study, and empirical data can at least help with this. This is the first step forward. What other specific question would you rather want to answer for this? Because for this, at least I try to also give a bit more understanding by giving a quote and all the codes for why did people say specifics, what went wrong, and why they give these ratings.
I mean, there are different techniques with Likert to ensure that if somebody has a 3 for operational feasibility, they will also do it for usefulness. So just doing an analysis where you see, hey, this person basically answered 4 to all of them.
So
you can do that with statistics. You can prove that that's reliable.
Yeah, for me, my higher importance was I was considering maybe to also take into account the domain expert that the person has, and I had like a 1 through 3, 4. Did the domain expert really care? Eventually, I felt like this is again too much information. What I did try to do to counter some kind of influence that the results have is I mixed the order. So I felt like if I'm going to show the focus area maturity model D, document D at the end, and each time show it at the end, might be that if I every time show D at the end, people might be a little bit and rate it later. So I also mixed up those ratings, and it did show. It was only for one document. It was for software product portfolio management. That if I showed that one the first, that they would rate it higher than if I showed it the last. And I could argue of it is because people already have some kind of standards of how his focus area maturity model is supposed to be. And because I showed it the last, people already have like, oh, I've got a high standard. If I showed the first, people already don't have a standard yet.
Recency effect.
Yeah. Very much so.
That's useful and usually.
What I really, and I can also remark that back into the last slides, there was later alternative research where I at least added a figure to try to give a bit more understanding. What I would really also be interested in if I just grab all the existing focus area maturity models or maturity models in general, and I try to at least have one or two people view it, and from that have a bit more of a mixture of data. There's not too many people then of who evaluate a maturity model, but then have more of a mixture of an AI one from a human one that might have yielded more plethora of variability to support the generalizability. This was also something I was very curious on.
I noticed you use a lot of good quotes throughout your research, but I think good research is also based on disagreement and saying, okay, I make these decisions, I understand the previous research says this. Where were the biggest disagreements you had with previous research, like Bill Curtis or something like that?
I can honestly say this right now, and I'm just very much two disagreements. One of it, there's a disagreement about which way a maturity model is supposed to work. You've got staged and you've got continuous. I heard from one of the participants who said continuous is better because if you have continuous, you can really put your focus on one of the process areas and improve on that, and the other ones can kind of falter. Whereas for Bill Curtis, who has like an organizational background, he said like you really don't want to have a practice that might cause you a bad practice, and you instantly go better in another practice, because if you just take one process area upwards and the other one is still at the downwards layer, then that's going to undermine your top process. And there's some disagreement about that. The second one is, and I have a disagreement about that with Bill Curtis. I didn't specifically state, he said that the value of maturity models faded as it went too much into the technical and capability aspect, that the organizational aspect left, that we should go back into how should we organization assess to go to a higher level. And I was very much like, that's fine, but I feel like the value of maturity models left when we left the empirical data, where we actually measured the higher maturity level you go, the percentage it will yield better outcome. Because the current maturity models, they might be assessed by domain experts, but those domain experts actually have a situation where they might be wrong. They might be right for that specific area, but really what you want, the higher level you go, the better outcome. And I think the empirical data will do the right step forward. And I can even bring on the third point, but I know
Use the time, Nico also such a question.
Yeah.
Did you consider asking ChatGPT which model is better?
This is true that there was one expectation that's recommended self-assessment. Self-assessment through case studies, or at least self-assessments to, is the maturity model right, is the maturity model wrong, and give you a bit of like, how can I even improve this maturity model? I've considered it, but it's that I didn't do it in my research, as many other things are in my research already being taken place, and I rather want to go 4 millimeters forward than 4 centimeters, and already explore too much. And the expectations I also wanted to very much keep within the from what the maturity model community says, not from me.
Okay, I'm not sure if you understood my question. It is because you have the human model, you have the AI generated model. You can ask ChatGPT, of course, also which one is better.
Oh, that's
because you have defined the criteria like usefulness.
Basically, use ChatGPT as an interviewee.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you have 17
expert, right?
Yeah.
Well, for those, I already I left it to the research of the expectations, as there was also the suggestion to use ChatGPT as a reflection if the model is still up to date. It was also suggested.
It's also it's interesting to ask which one is created by you and by AI.
It's still a bit of a loop. Because related to this, of course, that if you can apply AI more to developing maturity models, also developing the questionnaires to make it more measurable, etc. The other question is, and that's a more specific one, if you look at scientific research, how do you see the future of scientific research? Are Slinger and I only working with GPT in a few years, or is it we have to find another job?
Yes, these. These specific expectations, they are at least also within the cycle. This is only that I shot the top highlights, as you can see at the top left. Make an action plan was suggested 5 times, 4 times, make a draft, 3 times, make a list of capabilities, 2 times, give a suggestion that was up to date. But the suggestions you said of make an assessment plan or communicate which maturity model is better or select the maturity model that's right for what the organization needs of the existing maturity models, that was all collected and I do have for that. I could have also researched that further onto it, but then I go back to the question, this is still too far outside of my scope, otherwise it would bring too much into my research.
So it could also be used to check, have we gone up 1 level given this and this and this input, or things like that. So that would be interesting.
It was even more like you combine it to the current, all the data in the organization and it automatically assesses. It's all very.
Where should you work on in your organization?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you maybe even combine it then with the empirical data if it's still also. What I found interesting is, well, maturity model, capability maturity model integration, that's the CMMI that it changed to the CMMI. They have it that they do get the data when the CMMI gets tested. They get it sent to the organization and they still measure the higher level you go, does it still hold with reality? So what I would love to have, and I even wrote a whole paragraph and I eventually scrapped it, of my ideal future of maturity models. The ideal future where we grab all the existing maturity models and we show how it was created, what kind of validation method was used, then we have some kind of Amazon place and you can search for the right maturity model that's there. And there is also a pipeline where empirical data validates the higher maturity level you go, the better. And you even go user rating. But this was like, right, I sadly had to comment it out because I thought this is going too overboard.
Hey, well, we can start at maturitymodels.org. Put your maturity models there. Okay, Mischa, we will have to leave the room for a moment.
Yes.
To confer. Yeah, maybe this is also one more nice opportunity to thank you again. So thanks for all your night. We will be back. If not, but she needs to be more.
Mischa, you don't know so? Huh? Do you don't know or have to getting so many errors?
Did you use the format that maybe Paul also suggested where you have for each chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, 4
Different pages.
Yeah, that helped me a lot first of all. At least I have to then comment out the entire page and finally check for the errors.
That makes sense. You have access to it?
The problem, what I had mentioned is that I choose combining time to fill up.
Okay.
And when you have like combining, it says like you went out with the combining time, it's just going to have to go to a page version. That's just a heads up.
Okay, well, I'll let you go back to your family. I'll see you again.
Thanks for the information.
Thank you. How did you feel with your own maturity model?
I think we should have a few more.
As I'm expecting when you go to right now, people don't know what it's focus area. Ja, zeker. Ja, dat was heel leuk. Ik werd er voor een paar blokjes voor mensen. A little bit please can you show yeah, this is my thesis. So this is at least what the crew. Basically, three errors could have come up. One error is it will just put everything in the lane. Second error is it will fill every cell. Third error is it might miss a replication level. But all in all, the placements, it does show that as a point with it can finally understand how a focus area material model is supposed to be and what level it's supposed to be. And what I've also had as comment is it seems to be more naturally distributed from people. Yeah, the dependency to this, no inconsistency when it goes to
There's a laser pointer at the tip of the mouse.
Oh yes.
The top button?
So it goes from this to this to this, this to this to this, and it takes into account like independent of the other focus areas. So that's what I had to take into account because for my research, I noticed there were 5 important differences in focus areas. One is the maturity level. So I chose that for my selection, I choose between all the existing ones from 8 to 12, and my algorithm has like always makes 10. I'm not going to use the CMM logic, so I'm focused on the CMM logic. When they say this is supposed to be initial, then repeatable, I'm going to use segmentation. I don't use interlinks capabilities. For me, it just goes from like left to right per lane. And some have even labeling what specific zones meant.
Means you train that.
Yeah. And I can at least show you a little bit of like what is in the training or the instructions, but I am also still trying to figure out what I put into it. I'm using Generative AI to make sense of it. This, grab it. Basically, all the text that you can read here is when it's the training. So here I give it a role. Yeah, I give it instructions. Here I give it an example how it's supposed to look like. Here I'm giving it mathematical formulations. And in the end, it's able to create a encouragement.
Do I give me access to the things I create?
So
And also I can look at the overlay.
yeah, 100%. So that's good.
How much time do you think it took? Do you think it took 4 months? I don't know how stupid I'm being right now and how realistic it is.
4 months. It was a very big headache. That was for me. It depends on like if you're going to use the app. Is also to go through all the specific quotes, all these little quotes.
Oh yeah.
I'm like,
Oh, don't quote. That's what you're saying.
yeah.
Did 60 a minimum number of interviews to be valid or no?
No.
Okay, I'll take like 5 or 6 weeks at 17 and I had a heart attack.
Yeah,
It's like just grabbing 17 interviews.
I initially planned to just go for 12 interviews, and then I looked like fucking there's like 7 interviews.
Yeah.
But then luckily, when you just snowball, people even say, I got so much people.
I can contact. Okay.
And what also helped is I looked at the LinkedIn group that has the topic. I encourage it out. I make a post, a little bit on research, and I do a call to action with a Calendly link where people can see plan and meetings with my teams.
Thanks. All right, cool. Appreciate that, man. What's next?
So,
Vacation.
vacation. Basically, pretty short. I've got like 3 things like that right now. I've used 3 paths. Either own business, either try to find a business that I feel like I'm standing behind it and I want to go to like directions, or find a very direction that's like, I don't know, that place. It's a big firm that has prestige, little tiny side of as subjects. University doesn't do a lot of it. Doesn't really do with something where they do connections. I don't really match.
Wow, man. Also, I need the. It's okay. Oh, thank you.
Normally the room is filled with excitement, but there everybody is just doing their own thing. All right, so well, I'm sure that nobody will listen to anything I say before I mention a number. So that starts with a number. We did not make it a 9, but we made it a 9 minus. Dus dat is een 8,75. Yeah, what can I say? Passion. You also got me passion for the topic. I also was, I think we started this project off really well.
I want to say one more thing that really got me with the passion. Because I'm sorry to say. I just want to say, I've worked as an IT consultant and I have to deal with quality management. And I want to say I was so disappointed to see what quality management was. It was the exact opposite of quality management. It was they're just doing, and Bill Kurzweil called it became a compliance model. They're just trying to roll up a checklist. And whenever I have a good idea to get the organization to a higher quality maturity level, it was like, well, we can't do that because it goes a little bit off our checklist and it might pose a danger for our checklist. Not actually quality management.
That's actually the company where I work.
Yeah. So with that I had to do it, and it was so great to see that when I read through the original paper, original book of Watch Humphrey, he really talked about how can you get to a higher level to reduce cost, to reduce bugs, to get better deadlines, and I know that with painful was at level 1. So,
Okay, let's not talk about this story. Very happy to be where we are today. Also, well, yeah, critique-wise, it's very hard to give critique when there's so much enthusiasm and so much.
I've got a list of like improvements.
Yeah, no, but I mean also for the process. I mean, we are not only here to talk about the thesis, but we're here to talk about Mischa and your next step into the world. The material we think is really worth of maybe turning into an academic paper. So that's something that will be the next step for us to write something out of this, and hopefully you have your wingman support on that. Yeah, and so the material we're really happy with. There are some things in the thesis where you're, I'm not even sure if it's a bad thing, but you took grote stappen snel thuis, as we say. So sometimes, you skipped on, and I think that's the main thing that we can talk about.
One thing I made was like with the literature review, I wanted a bit more ground. What does the design criteria mean, and how does this like work with all the other design criteria, and of course the Generative AI connection with maturity models. it's very true. I very much agree with that.
Yeah, it's just something that, but also for this reason we are standing here today and not in 2 months.
Yeah.
So that's also something to keep into account. And your selection of models, I also remember when you told me I'm going to do, portfolio management and,
It was also system engineering. I also was like curious in
Yeah.
what was created. I do say I would have wished you also maybe had like a systematic visual review for that. That would be good. And a systematic
you
visual.
have the nice list, which we maybe reuse in another project.
There's now one extra that I did find later on. So this.
It's a nice little gift to us. So,
And
no, but I'm going to stop here because we are over our hour and there's a traffic jam waiting for me.
I also thank the participants that are currently in the group. So I will by that also end it. And of course, any things that will be later discussed, they'll stand after this. So thank you for also listening to people that are online.
Congratulations.